I was 18 years old when I was arrested. I was 150 pounds when I first walked into that jail, and I remember thinking, I am way out of my element. There's a reason I carried a gun on the street is because a lot of people were a lot bigger and a lot badder than me, and I thought I could keep myself safe if I had something to use. All of a sudden in the jail, locked behind walls and locked behind bars, with nothing to defend myself, though later in prison there were plenty of knives and plenty of weapons. But it was something I realized was not as big of an issue, because generally, if I didn't have a problem with someone else, they didn't have a problem with me. If I didn't run up a debt, or if I didn't talk slick, or I didn't get into problems, for the most part, there weren't problems coming my way. Now, that wasn't universal, and it took me a while to figure that out, and I definitely went in, and the best advantage I had when I went in is that I was so strung out and so exhausted that all I could do was sleep. Like, I wouldn't have been able to defend myself if I needed to, because I had spent days and weeks of not sleeping, living on cocaine and fried chicken and alcohol, and I was barely alive. Now, when I got to prison after 10 months, after a year and a half, I realized that, yeah, there's still drama. There are things that happen, but there are things I could do to stay out of the way. Now, it helped that I was younger. It helped that I was basically one of the younger guys who stayed out of the way, wasn't involved in gang stuff, wasn't running up debts, wasn't getting high. But at the same time, things did come my way. What I recognized was in that situation, just like any situation, I had to deal with what was right in front of me. That I could live my life in a state of anxiety, and I did for a while, or I could deal with what was real, rather than imagining problems and imagining threats and imagining scenarios. And so I put one foot in front of the other. And I got in some fights, and I got my ass beat, and I was in some dangerous situations, but I just showed up day after day. What I found was the more value I could add to the lives of people around me, the more I could be helpful, the more I could tutor, the more I could mentor, the more I could do legal paperwork for or help for, all of a sudden the more value I had and the less at risk I was. Nobody wanted to hurt the guy who was helping everybody. Nobody wanted to let somebody else hurt the guy who was helping them. So all of a sudden, when I added value to the lives of those around me, whatever that looked like, I was in a much safer, much more comfortable place.